Welcome to the DC pod. So I'm your host, Christian, and as always, without a doubt, joined by Dallas diehard Darcy. What's happening, Darcy?
Hey Chris, not much, mate. Mavs still rolling at 7-7, so we're looking good. Good win yesterday. KP's back in the fold, so I'm a happy man.
Yeah, for sure. You guys are still short-handed, obviously dealing with your COVID stuff, but it's good to see your 1-2 punch back in action. Good to see KP healthy. Now we're a quarter of the way through the season, Dust. So it's crazy how
Wow.
quick and how time has basically flown. I can't believe it's been nearly, let's say, 18 games, 20 games for about each team. So as always, plenty to talk about. We'll review the Bucks-Lakers game yesterday. We'll give out some early impressions on this Brooklyn super team. We'll look at as well some mystery teams / players who we haven't really given much shine on the pod. And then we'll finish off with some locks of the day as always. So my one question to you, Das, are you ready?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Lead pass. Stop it! Stop it! You don't do it like that! What are you doing, Dragons? Parker. J.O. Smith! We just saw men fly! Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup! Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection! Decide not to use it, Curry, way downtown! Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! Play hard, step back, puts up the three, got hit, shot's good, and one! James Harden double team, and a chance for a 4-point play.
So as I just mentioned off the top, massive game yesterday, battle of the Titans with the Bucks really being expected to dominate in the East, Lakers expected to take care of business in the West. So it was a really good and interesting matchup yesterday. Anything in particular, Dust, that stood out to you from that game?
That LA won the game, 113-106. LA got the win. It's just typical of LeBron and his teams that have gone on to win championships. They know when these regular season games have a little bit more meaning and when they mean a little bit more to get the dub over a rival who's contending, be it on the other side of on the other conference. But he knows that when he goes out to play against Giannis, he has to show that he's the best player on the floor. 34 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists on 13 of 25 shooting, 6 out of 10 triples. That's the best he shot from 3 playing for the Lakers. LeBron came to play and he knew it was going to be a battle of the Titans against him and Giannis. You look at the stat sheet and Giannis has fouled out and LeBron's dropped 6 threes and top scored with 34 points. So that was the number one thing right away that stood out to me. What do you think about that?
The LeBron-Giannis matchup is obviously what people really intrigued about. And yet again, LeBron, just reminds people that, like, hold on, like, I know I'm 36, but like, I'm still the king for a reason. Like Giannis, like, go sit down at the kids' table. You're not here to join the adults yet. So I think that apart from obviously the fact that Giannis fouled out, 9 turnovers, like, wow. Man, he's got to be so much better than that. Because even if he halves those to 4 or 5 in a 2 or 3 possession game, which it really came down to at the end, there are a couple of key plays that the Lakers made that, really hurt the Bucks in the end. But if the Bucks had 4 or 5 more offensive possessions that resulted in a bucket as opposed to a Giannis turnover, then we could be here speaking today about a really good Bucks win. But I think that was the downfall for them. And if we then want to compare things further, if you just want to look at the Lakers bench against the Bucks bench, which coming into the year, most people were worried about that Bucks depth, and it kind of shown as of late, and it especially showed yesterday because the Lakers had 31 points off the bench to the Bucks 16. So being able to double them is always a key thing. I think AD has actually been the guy that's, we've spoken about it before, but he's been the one that's been in cruise control. LeBron's been the one that's actually turned it on since the start. But AD at the end of yesterday's game made a couple of big plays, got double teamed at the elbow, found Caruso in the corner who hit a big 3. And that was before LeBron, hits that tough 3 at the end of the shot clock over Lopez to sort of finish things off. But the bigger question for me, Das, is the Bucks. So if you don't mind, I've done a little bit of research into their season so far, and I want to get your reactions about this. So 9-6 is their record after 15 games. Now they're 9 wins. Detroit, they've played 3 times. So they've got 3 wins against Detroit. So the other 6 wins came against Golden State, at the start of the season with no Draymond. Came against the Bulls, who I think were fully healthy. But then they beat the Heat with no Butler. They beat the Cavs with no Garland and Sexton. They beat Orlando a couple games after Orlando lost Fultz to that, devastating injury that really put a damper on, the Magic. And then they barely beat Dallas without Kleber, without Finney-Smith, without Richardson, without Brunson. So none of those wins are impressive to me. None of those 9. And then their losses, so the 6 losses have come against Boston, New York, Miami, Utah, Brooklyn, and then the Lakers. So my question is, what has impressed you about any of that for this Bucks season so far? Because I'm not impressed by anything.
I guess when you break it down like that, there's some good teams that they've lost to there in that run. But yeah, you still got to take care of those teams that aren't very good. There's a lot of teams out there in the NBA who you're not expecting them to knock off the Bucks on any given night, but you've still got to get those wins. And I think when you're a team like Milwaukee, something that I might kind of balance out what you're saying there is Milwaukee have been the best team in the regular season the last 2 years, and they know they're going to be in the playoffs. And right now they're still looking like they're locked to be a home court playoff team. So you start to think, what's more important, Milwaukee, that we find our legs at the end of the season or that we get good wins in the first month of the year. I think they're already looking ahead to the playoffs. They've got great continuity and they know they're going to be there. So I don't want to say the regular season doesn't matter for them, but I'm not too concerned that they're not beating the best of the best teams this early in the regular season. But, it's still yet to be proven whether they can do it in the playoffs.
Yeah, because, if you look at some of the losses, I know they're against good teams, but that's kind of where I want to see them perform. I want to see a little bit of a teaser for how they'll be in the postseason because they're going to come up against these teams that just won't lie down. Like you'll get up 10, 15, but teams will still be in it and willing to fight back. There's no comfort from the Bucks side of things and, potentially getting used to blowing out these bad teams, as good as they may be at it. I think their schedule has been extremely favorable given all of those wins that they got against teams that had guys missing. And so far they've had a pretty, let's say, smooth ride in terms of personnel and guys being available. They haven't been hit hard really by injury or corona at all so far. But even one of those games, one of these last 2 games, I would have really loved to see them get the dub, and especially in tight games. Just the fact is that your best player, you can't give him the ball at the end of games because
the questions continue with Giannis. Absolutely,
it's give it to Chris Middleton and hope that he's hitting. He had a pretty tough look against Brooklyn in the corner there for the win. He was kind of double teamed for that 3-point shot, and then the late game possessions yesterday against the Lakers were not too great as well because they're really trying to just funnel the ball through Middleton, especially once Caruso hit that 3, LeBron hit that 3. They then went, well, Giannis just can't drive to the rim now and get us an easy bucket because we're now chasing this lead. So that's when you start forcing it through some of these other guys and it starts to go south. And Drew Holiday, as good as he is, he's not going to knock down outside shots at a ridiculous rate. If anything, I think Drew Holiday's super effective in the low post and bullying guys because he's so bulky and strong that he loves getting to the rim. So now he sort of is almost another Giannis in terms of loves getting to the rim, but his outside shot is not as consistent as you'd like it to be. So it's only really Middleton in that potential closing lineup, maybe DiVincenzo as well in that closing lineup that you can reliably count on to potentially hit a perimeter shot.
I think it was a good test this game against the Lakers. Lakers obviously played, they played without Anthony Davis having a massive game. They played like they really wanted to win this. It was huge for Milwaukee. When you look at the the game and how many shots both teams got up, Milwaukee got up an extra 15 shots, won the boards by 10. And like you said, they had their problems taking care of the basketball. It was really the 3 that got it done for LA and made it seem like a playoff game. It's tough to score. You're not going to run away with any lead here. You're going to have to chip away and try to get the win. I think Milwaukee put themselves in a position to win that game for sure. And it's interesting what you say about who they go to, because I was going to touch on who I thought their best guy was to give the ball to at the end of the game in clutch situations. I'm not talking about to hit a tough game when I'm talking about these crucial possessions in the last minute or two when we need to create a really good shot. And what I saw from Drew Holiday in this game was that I reckon he is their best playmaker. I reckon he's a guy who can really break down the defense when he's scoring the ball, when he is making jump shots, when he's getting to the basket. He can really create good shots for their offense. And I think he's a guy who they bought in to be a clutch player, to score big buckets, to make big plays down the stretch. I feel a little bit better about Milwaukee this season, knowing that he's out there in those clutch situations because he can make stuff happen. We know that Middleton can get it done, scoring the ball like late in the games. We know that he can. He's such an efficient shooter. But it all kind of comes down to we need Giannis to be better if this team's going to win the championship, because I like what Holiday and Middleton are doing. And right now, I'd be saying let's give the ball to Holiday and Middleton down the stretch. But, we've got the MVP on our team. We can't be, that's up to Giannis. He's got to step up and become that late game guy that we can trust to get us buckets. And I think it really comes down to his free throw shooting and how he doesn't want to get to the line late in games. And he hasn't really shown the ability to knock down clutch jump shots, at least this season, and it's going to be a problem for them going forward. I think at the moment, I kind of prefer the ball in the other guy's hands in the clutch. We're talking about Holiday and Middleton, and that's really saying something about Giannis.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that your MVP is someone who's potentially told to just get out of the way to create space for the, Middleton or Holiday. I'm not convinced that Middleton can be that guy in the clutch, and I don't think we've seen Drew Holiday enough in a sample size to be able to judge him. But so I don't want to put anything on him and say that he's not a clutch player. But yeah, man, it's basically the Philly version of saying Embiid, get out of the way, the ball's in Ben Simmons' hands, or just something like that. Effectively, I know it's not the same because you can compare Giannis to Ben, but basically what we're doing is with Milwaukee, we're saying our best player, go and stand in the corner. So if we said that to Philly and said Embiid, go and stand in the corner, that's a crazy thing to think. But so far the proof is in the pudding that he can't be able to get it done in the clutch. I am actually pretty concerned about the Bucks. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. How many chances do we give Giannis in the playoffs before we say he can't get it done as a scorer in the clutch? Like what I like when you talk about having a little moving, having a little turnaround. At times during regular season games, Giannis is backing guys down in the mid post, turn, fading, and shooting. And when he's knocking that down, you think, okay, can he get rolling? Can he start to shoot those kind of shots when it matters? But it seems like in the fourth quarter, that's not a shot that he wants to go to, that kind of turnaround jump shot. And for me, that's as you know by Dirk, that's an absolutely unguardable shot. And when you've got that kind of size and advantage, no one can stop you getting that shot off. So I think that's a shot that he should be looking to.
Yeah. So look, the Bucks is definitely a team we'll have to keep an eye on because nothing's really changed. I think from our perspective with the Lakers, I think we're both still pretty high on them and being favorites. Pretty much the favorites to take it out. But it's more, I think this game's a reflection on the Bucks. And maybe as well, the fact that we need to start, like I know I've spoken about Embiid, MVP, all of this stuff. You can put Jokic there, but people have spoken about KD. But man, maybe we need to put LeBron there as well. I think he's started to show that this season, for whatever reason, he's just motivated to go, you know what, like stuff it, we can do it. Let's go again. Let's go back to back. So
the way that the leadership that he showed, the game that they lost to the Warriors, which was a tough loss for them because they had that game in the bag early in the piece. I remember one specific play where he drove, draw a double team, kick it out to KCP, was wide open in the corner. KCP hesitated, shot fake, passed it to someone else. I think they got a shot clock violation. LeBron runs up to him, basically yells right in his face and goes, shoot the ball. Like, that's what you're here for. This is how we're going to win games. You need to do this. And KCP, best game of the season against Milwaukee, 6 of 10 from three. Sorry, even 7 of 8 from three, 23 points. KCP was the man and probably the difference in this matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got nothing further to add. That was a good bit of tidbit. It's something I don't think I've really noticed from that Warriors game. I think overall with that Warriors game, I was just kind of loving the run that they were on, down 17 or whatever. I wasn't really concerned about the Lakers side of things, but I hated that Lakers end of possession against the Warriors there where they kind of just folded and look, the ball wasn't in LeBron or AD's hands in that game, and neither of them were demanding it. And so in the end,
AD
I think
hasn't
it was
been demanding it at all.
I think it was Schroeder or maybe
Right.
Caruso who threw up a three. Oh no, they ended up calling a timeout with like a second and a half
because
left.
Schroeder couldn't get a shot off.
Yeah. And then in the end, I think it was LeBron who just took a deep three after that timeout. But it was crazy to me that neither of those guys were give me the effing ball.
Good.
Anyway.
The good teams, they're able to right the ship. Next
Yeah.
game's a big game and
Yeah.
they come to play. It's just, that's the sign of a good team.
Yeah, definitely. Now, did just mention them as the team that played the Bucks before yesterday, Brooklyn. So they, for the first time, were able to put their three main guys on the floor after someone located Kyrie. So do you have any early impressions from that first hit out, irrespective of, I guess, the fact that they lost and whatever, but just the roster or how it looked on the floor in general?
I think, it was interesting to see Kyrie back. I think he was just sick of everyone talking smack about him because there's been a lot of chat about Kyrie since this trade went down. What's he going to do? How's he going to perform? And he basically came out and said, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do Uncle Drew. I'm going to do Kyrie Irving no matter what. I don't care who's on my team. This is how I play ball. I come out and I shoot. Led the team in field goal attempts, 28, but he knocked down 15 of them. Guy was efficient as anything, 37 points. Yeah, it kind of puts to bed the questions of, will Kyrie get his shots? Will he get his points? He can get them on any given night. It's just pretty much a given for him. Something that was particularly interesting about their balance was kind of came to fruition. What I thought was going to happen was that James Harden was going to be the lead ball handler and he's going to be making a lot more of the passing decisions. He's had 10 assists in every game so far. He only went for 14 shots in that double overtime game. When have we ever been able to say that about James Harden in the last 6 years? 14 shots in double overtime game. So you can tell he's already starting to sacrifice his offensive game a little bit, which is pleasing signs for them. One thing that was a little bit of concern was Joe Harris played a lot of minutes, only got 7 shots. So I think with Kyrie out there as well, all of a sudden we're paying Joe Harris almost, like $25, $30 million for this season, and he's not really getting touches. So I think they need to kind of sort that out a little bit. And I think the main thing that'll help that is shoring up their front court. We know that you spoke about DeAndre Jordan, and it's going to be tough to rely on him for big minutes, but they really need to quickly kind of sort out that position, whether it's just finding guys from the G League or if they're going to make a trade before the deadline or just going to pray that they can get someone in a buyout. But they really need someone in the front court to kind of give them another dynamic to allow guys like Joe Harris to get a little bit more shots when they play with the second unit. Because obviously, the guys all play close to 50 minutes, the big three for Brooklyn in that double overtime game. So you can't necessarily, in the playoffs, that's going to be the strategy they're going to have to go to. But for the regular season, there's still quite a stretch to go. So I think they really need to kind of sort out their depth and figure out how they're going to get their guys through the regular season and peaking at the right time. I still think from what I've seen so far, we're looking at a super team that will be better in the playoffs. They will be tougher to match up against in a 7-game series. Okay, I could imagine a game. Well, are they playing today? Actually, Cavs is a rematch.
They're playing
Cavs
again.
Nets.
Yep.
Even though Durant's out, I'd expect the Nets to come out really hard and show Cleveland, we've seen what you've got. We've seen that Sexton can play. Let's change our defensive scheme. Let's make sure we lock him up and let's get this win. That's what I expect from a super team. And that's why I think this Brooklyn team will be better in the playoffs. Yeah.
Well, the thing that you speak about with their big man depth, they signed Norvel Pell this morning. So Norvel Pell.
Guy?
Yep, used to play in Philly. And for anyone who doesn't know, the easy comparison is he's a little bit less skilled, but he's very similar to a Mitchell Robinson type guy, just a pogo stick athlete. Blocks, runs the floor hard, is a lob threat, etc. He won't do energy. He won't do too much outside of that. So that's the caliber of guy you're getting with the Norvel Pell. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole type of rotation and the way they kind of play goes anyway, moving forward. I'm not
sure. They
need
rebounding help too.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. The only other thing that I've kind of noticed outside of the points you've made is you're relying on a lot of Jeff Green at the moment. So do you need another bigger type wing, or do you need another 4? Because if you sort of continue to give Jeff Green that type of workload, he's surely gonna, break down and be at the risk of injury. We know he's been just a guy who, when he's on the floor, can drop 20, 25, 30, and then the next 10 games he can go missing and, shoot, 2 of 10 from the field for the next, X amount of games. He's very inconsistent. He has proven, though, that he can show up when it matters. I don't know if people remember the game 7 in Boston when it was basically him and LeBron, Cavs against the Celtics, that both the let's say unexpected duo that were able to get it done over that pretty prolific Celtics team, when the Cavs were not only shorthanded but really struggling with offensive playmakers. So Jeff Green can produce. He has played well so far, actually, in that 4 spot, or even when they've gone small and DeAndre's been on the bench. Jeff Green at the 5 / KD at the 5 has worked pretty well. I will further to, I think Joe Harris, I struggle to see how he does fit in that starting lineup, but man, I definitely want to see him in that starting lineup.
Yeah. You want him getting looks.
100%. Correct. He's obviously an elite shooter, won the 3-point contest a couple of years ago. He's super efficient. I think people, when they speak about a guy like Duncan Robinson and how efficient he is and no wasted dribbles, you should definitely be putting Joe Harris in that same sentence. I don't think he gets enough love for that. And Joe's even better than a guy like Duncan Robinson on defense as well. So Joe Harris is super underrated.
Good rebounder.
And I think just in general, as you say, it'll be a crucial part to this team, not only during the regular season, but man, in the postseason, he'll be pretty important to be in that, corner wing spot when guys are getting double teamed to just knock down and punish. And it's nice to know that
similar to KCP.
Exactly. Almost the exact role that KCP played, where he swung a couple of those final series against the finals games against the Heat. And I think people should just note, though, they shouldn't expect the Brooklyn Nets to basically go undefeated and, absolutely steamroll the regular season. There's going to be games like the other day against the Cavs where, every opposition they come up against will be like similar to that Golden State team that was undefeated for the first, God, I don't know how long they reckon. I was going to say 25. Yeah, 28. They're going to get the opposition's best game every night. They're going to come up against hungry players like Colin Sexton that, take the matchup personally. And just to note as well on Cleveland, like they're a top 5 defensive team so far this year. They're top 5 in defensive rating in the league. So far they may not have the guys, but they certainly compete hard defensively. But I just think to note for Brooklyn, there's going to be plenty of regular season games where you think there's no way they can lose and they end up losing, just because there'll be nights like that. And then there'll be nights where, one of the big 3 gets extremely hot and it's able to carry the team to victory. But I don't think we should judge this team until post-trade deadline, buyout market time, see what their final roster is, and then, start to really make your assessment, because these next 25, 30 games will really just be about trying to find chemistry, what works, what doesn't, and really figuring out what their best, say, potentially 7 guys will be, or 8 guys, whatever rotation you'll have for the playoffs. But interestingly enough, I'll throw this out to you, Dus. I saw it yesterday, actually. Who do you think the top 3 in the league is for isolation points? Top 3 players in the league.
Isolation points. Ooh.
It's very relevant to what we're speaking about.
It's got to be
in it.
Kyrie.
You don't have to say the order, but just who do you think the top 3 are?
I reckon Kyrie's got to be in there. I reckon LeBron's probably in there as well, potentially. And probably Harden as well.
Close. So the top 3 is...
How many?
The top 3 is Kyrie, Harden, Durant.
What, all 3?
All 3, yeah.
Okay, wow. Righto.
Yeah.
Then
and that's just for this season. So it's obviously a 15, 16 game sample, but so far that's I think Harden has something like 7 or 8 points a game. Kyrie has 5, and then Durant has just under 5 for isolation points.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Definitely.
You hope that'll help them in the playoffs. I suppose that's playoff ball.
Yeah.
When it's half court and there's no loose play, let's just who can get us a bucket. We've got 3 of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure. Is there anything else you want us to touch on with this Brooklyn team?
No, I think you're right. I think we can't be judging them too early, and they're going to look a little bit different down the road. So for the meantime, we'll just kind of enjoy the big score lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big box scores.
Especially today. I actually expect today's game to go over actually whatever the points total is. I know the Cavs aren't an explosive offensive team, but with no Durant playing, he's almost like your defensive anchor. So
yeah,
it could be silly season for the score in today's game anyway, in particular. Okay, so moving on. Now, I wanted to bring in this segment, Dust, for mystery players / teams, because you and I have covered a lot of different, teams and players so far in the pods we've done. But just to cover off on a few ones that we potentially haven't mentioned enough or gone too much in depth, I thought this would be a pretty good segment to hit on. So I'll open the floor up to you first. Did you want to give me your first be it mystery player or team, and we'll take it from there?
Okay, mystery player. This guy is ascending into all-star level. The guy is Jerami Grant, the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
He's 25 a game, 6 boards, 2.5 rebounds, 1 steal, 1.5 blocks, shooting 47% from the field and 39% from 3. He's making 2.6 threes per game, Jerami Grant. So you're probably not watching a lot of Detroit basketball people out there. He's got a good PER, almost 22. The next best PER in their team is D Rose at 18. So he's basically carrying them. So any wins that they get, it's all on the back of Jerami Grant. He is, well, one thing that stands out to me when you see how dominant he's playing, when he's given a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more court time, a little bit more shots, is Denver must be kicking themselves right now because they are desperate for a third guy or just someone to be consistent scoring the basketball. And they had him in their team, had him in their system, the perfect fit for the position that they need as well, that small forward, power forward kind of switchable guy. And they let him go. And it's really starting to hurt. Jerami Grant, he's just taking his game to a whole nother level. Obviously, shooting the 3 at a high clip is critical, but he just uses athleticism to get to the basket so well. And he's great at getting deflections. He's athletic getting rebounds, and he's just put his turnovers down as well. He's starting to take care of the ball there, but he's never going to be a guy to facilitate at a high level because he's just such a great finisher. So if he can continue to shoot the ball like he is on the outside and get to the rim and finish like he kind of always has, he's putting up all-star numbers right now.
Yeah, well, the reason why I laughed when you mentioned him is because the start of the pod, we said, oh, we reckon we'll have the same guy for our mystery player. And that was the case with Jerami Grant. So for me, what most is impressive is not only just his numbers and the fact he's doubled them in, points, rebounds and assists from last year, but given his increased usage and responsibility, his efficiency has been ridiculous. And it's not just been sort of empty stats, bad team, because Detroit, although they've potentially overall not been going great, they've picked up some really impressive wins along the way. Just 3 to mention is they obviously beat the Celtics. They've beaten Phoenix and they beat Miami the other day by 20 points. So yes, Miami potentially were missing a few guys, but they still had Bam, Dragic, a few of their other guys healthy. So I think anytime you can beat a Miami Heat team, it's something you shouldn't, shake your head at because they're always well coached, and especially on the road, that's always an added thing that it may mean less this season, but it's still, the comfort of not being, in your own bed and etc. So any win for me against an Eastern Conference playoff team is a good win. And I think
they've been in it in a lot of games.
That's true.
The games that they've lost, they've been there to the fourth quarter and not got the dub. But they're not getting blown out.
No. And I think what I like as well is 39% from 3 for Jerami Grant, and he's attempting 7 a game. So he's not just taking like 2 or 3, like he's putting them up. And the icing on the cake really for me is with his increased usage, he's only averaging 1.5 turnovers a game. That's what I love. Like he's not sloppy with the ball. It's not just sort of all this athleticism and just chucking up shots at the rim. Like everyone was expecting him to obviously have better numbers,
be inefficient,
inefficient as hell and turn the ball over, and no one really care because it's Detroit and what did we expect of them? But I don't know if it's a stretch, but I'd honestly give him most improved player after 15 games over a guy like Christian Wood. I think
Yeah.
if we're doing something like quarter season awards or anything like that, he would probably be my most improved. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, he's having a huge impact on the team. You can just tell, he's the alpha dog on the team, and he's been a really good leader so far. You talk about how efficient he's playing and how hard he's playing. You can just tell by watching it that he's gutsing it out against the other team's best offensive player, and then he's putting up big numbers for his team on the other end. So I don't think you can ask much more of him so far.
No. And I actually think it holds him in good stead for something like a most improved, because everyone coming into the year was like, oh, as you say, Christian Wood or Kobe White or anyone Shea Gilgeous, all of those. So if we go back and just look at last year, and that was Ingram coming into the season, people were like, oh, Brandon Ingram, like no one really expected too much of him. He was just like blood clots, as you say, more of a lottery with how he was going to go coming from, the Lakers, and he exploded. So it's really normally those unseen guys that you don't think of coming into the season that end up winning that most improved. So be curious to see.
Doesn't look to be slowing down.
No.
For Drum. It doesn't feel like it's going to slow down anytime this season. He's balling.
Exactly. Okay. So Das, I've got a mystery team.
Cool.
New Orleans Pelicans. I thought they would be a weird team coming into the season, but man, it's just more confirmed that, if anything, the last 15 games, they're such a confusing team. Their roster doesn't really fit at all. I saw an image yesterday of a Pels offensive possession against Utah, and the picture was just, it was unbelievable. So basically what you had was Brandon Ingram with the ball on the wing. You had Zion posting up on that same side. You then also had Steven Adams on the elbow. And so it was absolutely laughable because they were all on that same wing that Brandon Ingram was. And Brandon Ingram had the ball trying to, I think he might have been trying to back down that guy. But basically that picture at the time was like, how is anybody meant to score with that sort of space? They're at a real tough spot. The fact that they don't have a 5 that's not only a rim protector, but a floor spacer on offense. I think that really stuffs things up with that Ingram Zion pairing at the 3-4. And it also stuffs things up with the fact that Bledsoe isn't a knockdown shooter. And as much as Lonzo Ball has gotten better at shooting, he's still not a knockdown shooter himself. So I think it was actually really crucial for them to go out and find a rim protecting floor spacing 5. Because that would have completely unlocked their offense. And the fact they don't have that sucks. I was really thinking, well, worst case, they'll be this lockdown defensive team. That's how Stan Van Gundy's operated as a coach. It hasn't been that at all.
Middle of the pack, aren't
they? They're even worse. So they sit 24th in the league defensively in terms of defensive rating. I think opponents' points they give up per game, they're middle of the pack. But over their last 9 games, they've given up 118 points per game on average. So
too many.
Far out. For a Stan Van Gundy team, he wouldn't be very happy. There's not really too much they can do with their current roster in terms of massive changes they can make, other than I just think they need to find more shooting. They definitely have no bench depth. All you have is Redick. And look, I do like JJ, but he's getting older. I do like Josh Hart. But beyond that, I don't know. Can a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker show up as, an absolute baller? I don't know. Maybe not. He was okay against.
I don't think so.
Who was it he went off against? Was it Clippers? I think it was Clippers. He dropped 37 when he started. But
first started. Yeah.
So that was one, I suppose, highlight or flash. But there's not really too much this Pelicans team can do. The only obviously saving grace is the fact that they have so many assets in the works with all their draft picks from that AD trade that they just need to hope that they can hit on a few of them, or even use them to pair them up to trade to acquire someone else to come along with Zion that's a better fit. Because at the moment, this roster is anything but a good fit for a guy like Zion.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, the guy I was going to touch on was Zion himself, because I think if one saving grace, we're looking at Zion playing 33 minutes a game so far this season. So they're actually starting to figure out, okay, we've got Zion playing on the floor. Now we can start to build around this. What does this actually look like? Well, what it looks like is 59% shooting, and he's barreling into the basket every time he gets the ball. Let's not try to make him into anything else that he's not. He's a beast on the block. He's a monster rebounding, and he wants to attack the hoop all the time, So when you talk about it like that, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. They don't have enough shooting in their starting lineup. They don't have enough shooting coming off the bench that kind of fits around Zion. You're right about their rim protection. Like, Steven Adams has been solid so far, but I guess it's kind of the same story that's happened over the last couple of years with Steven Adams. Like, he is very good in a certain role, but he's not a guy you can have out there for long periods of time. He just doesn't score the ball that well. And, he's not really switchable on defense enough to some of these stretch fives who are popping out and shooting deep triples. So the fit's not exactly correct. And I guess there was a bit of a, I don't know, a kind of a honeymoon period when we had Lonzo making a few threes at the beginning of the season and Bledsoe looked plausible. But now, Lonzo's had a couple of injuries and he's out of form. He's out of touch shooting the ball. And Bledsoe, he looks like a shell of himself. He's trying to take it to the basket every time he gets the ball. He's trying to get his. You can tell he's not committed to whatever's going on in the future of the Pelicans. He's just there to pick up his check and try to ball out as much as he can. So, yeah, you're right. They're a couple of years away, I think, or even next season they should be looking to kind of set themselves up to be a championship team because, Zion, he's going to be a superstar if not by this season, then next season, he's going to be an absolute superstar. He's completely unguardable. So we already know how deadly Ingram can be. So they really need to fix up that fit. So Redick is a guy who I think needs to be moved. I know Kendrick Perkins made a big tweet about saying, get JJ Redick out of there. The man deserves better in this part in his career and such like that. It feels like there's plenty of opportunity for him to come out there and knock down 3-pointers and stretch the floor, but it's just not working. And I think he's a guy who needs to be moved. They need to think about getting their roster a little bit younger. When you talk about Adams and Bledsoe, I think you need guys that kind of get along a little bit better with Zion and Ingram because those two guys are the face of the franchise. They're the character of the team goes with those two players. So I think, this season is a transition period for them into hopefully what can be a really, really stud team next year. And I think you hit the nail on the head when it needs to be based around spacing the floor with more shooting to, spread the floor for Zion.
Yeah. The funny thing is that you mentioned about Adams as well is when he's needed in certain roles, he is good. But especially with this Pelicans team, when he's not even on the floor, their team's a disaster. So, because they have Jackson Hayes, that young big, I think he was a number 10 pick a couple of years ago. He's still Bambi on ice. Like he's got all the tools in terms of athleticism, but he's got no idea what he's doing on defense. He's other than, being able to get a few lobs here and there, his offense is non-existent. So it is pretty worrying from a Pelicans perspective. But yeah, if they can get a 3-and-D guy at the wing spot that can fit alongside Ingram, I think that'd work nicely. Or even in the backcourt next to Lonzo. And then I think they've got to find that stretch five that can also protect the rim. I think that is the most important spot. They need to, figure out a way to be able to get someone there because even a guy like Nikola Melli, do you remember him off the bench?
Yeah, I like Melli.
He was playing big minutes last year for that Gentry team. So I know he may not be the best defensive guy, but he's going to space the floor.
For him, So him and Zion, that'd be a tough, him standing out, stretching the floor, and Zion being able to get to the basket. It's nice. Yeah.
So and look, you can then say, well, there's no defense, but maybe you just double down. And I don't know if it was the right move with the roster they have to go from Alvin Gentry, who is all about offense, pace and space, getting out and running, outscoring your opponents, early shots in the shot clock. Kind of that sort of D'Antoni mold. And they've gone to this Stan Van Gundy who wants half court. He wants, things to slow down. He wants to be a defensive grind out, the game type style. They want to
rebound a lot.
They want to rebound a lot. And at least they were fun to watch last year. They're not fun at all to watch this year other than watching Zion. It's really impressive, the Zion point you made. The last couple of games they came up against Utah, and Zion's eyes would light up when he would attack the rim, and it wouldn't matter who was there. So many people, when they see a guy like Rudy Gobert at the rim, they're like, oh shit, like I need to avoid his getting blocked, or I don't want No, Zion was going straight into him, as you say. And there was one highlight early in the game, not yesterday's game, but the first time they played against Utah, where Derek Favors came up to contest a shot, and Derek Favors was put on his ass. Like,
Yeah.
he's a big
Chested.
guy himself. Zion just went straight through his chest, finished it. I don't know if it was an and one, but it ended up with Derek Favors on his ass at the, you know, the base of the hoop, whatever you call the base of the stand thing, where he was just like lying there in there. And it was like, holy crap. Like it is very cool to see a healthy Zion. It's very good. I love that he's
in a couple of years, you know, where's this ceiling going to be? This guy's going to be getting 30 a game and he's going to be taking it to the cup against everyone. They've really got to start to kind of figure out what they're going to fit around him because he's a budding superstar.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that can happen if you decide to trade Adams and, you know, get rid of Bledsoe and just go young and just keep
maybe
continuing.
Lonzo's got to go too.
Yeah, and just keep continuing to build around that Ingram Zion pairing, because you're going to have a stack of draft picks, and even you've still got you know your own pick, and these next couple of drafts are meant to be stacked. And as soon as they, is it 2022 where the high school guys can then go straight into the draft, or 2023?
I think so. Yeah. 22 or 23, can't remember.
In the next couple of years anyway. So there's going to be so much talent available. The pool will just increase enormously when, you know, those high school guys are eligible to come in. So why not? I mean, we've seen already in a 15, 16 game sample that just so far it doesn't work. And you try and find positives or shining lights about how they can potentially get better. And there doesn't seem to be any, other than Zion suddenly scoring 40 a game as opposed to 30. Like there's just really not much they can do.
Yeah, I think they might have to start getting used to that, because that might be the mold for the future going forward for them, is playing, you know, around Zion's dominance in pretty much every matchup. But yeah, they need to. It feels like it's going to be a transition year. It feels like maybe they might make it to around the play-in tournament because they've got so much talent, and if they can get a bit of a roll on. But, you know, we're not expecting them to make, you know, to win a playoff series or to make any kind of noise like that. So it feels like this might be a transition period. Say, okay, what can we learn from Van Gundy and from having a strong front court with Adams? You know, what kind of stuff can we take away from that this season, and hopefully bring it into a whole different kind of new look team next year when we really unleash Zion as, you know, as the franchise player.
Yeah, no, that's true. The only thing I can think of is that they just did it for the, you know, veteran presence, as you say. So that's just having the right guys in the locker room
habits. Yeah. Start to, even though they're not defending that well right now, you know, start to concentrate on how we need to defend well to win games, and you know, bring that to add that into how talented we are offensively. We can be a really good team.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, do you have a second team / player?
Well, Zion was my guy, but I can touch on. We have spoken about this guy a little bit, and it's a little bit of bias just because we saw him last night of how dominant Colin Sexton was in that matchup. And it's clear to me, watch the whole of last season and every game I've watched him this year, he's ready. You know, he's ready to really become a dominant point guard in the NBA. The way that he's scoring the ball so efficiently, and just his general toughness and the way that he plays, it's I love watching it. And people should be tuning in to Sexton, because even though the Cavs might not be a relevant team, you know, he's a really relevant guy. He's taking it up to everyone in the league right now. I know you like Sexton. Yeah,
definitely. He's any guy that can do the Pat Beverly, but is much better offensively. Like that's sweet to me. I really enjoy that, because Pat Beverly is like all talk, and then you give him the ball in offense and Pat Beverly is like a disaster. But Sexton can really back up that talk with his offensive game, that's for sure. And even defensively, he's an absolute animal. He loves to get up in you. And I think my favorite thing
fit. Like he's so fit. Like he can run with these fastest NBA guards. He can run all day.
I think my favorite thing was there was a game in college where Sexton's Alabama, they had all these guys foul out, and it was like 4 and 5 in a game. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And Sexton was still scoring on certain possessions. He was
cooking.
He was cooking, and it was 4 on 5, and like it was just insane. But yeah, I think he got caught, or his performance got lost in just basically last year, which, as we know, the John B line, and we've mentioned it, was all a bit of a disaster. And Kevin Love was sort of in and out, and then they made the Drummond trade, and all of that sort of stuff happened. So it was definitely a weird season, but Sexton was still okay then. I think most people put more attention on the fact that Garland looked really bad last year. And so just for whatever reason, just the Sexton growth part of it was all sort of put on the corner. But
Yeah,
this year, really,
it's just Cleveland. He's just doing it on a bad team. But
correct.
No, this guy could be doing this on any team. He can really play.
So I think the fact that now we're seeing it and translating it into wins, and the fact that so many people were tuning into yesterday because of the opponent and the situation and the first time the big three were playing, for him to ball out on a stage like that. It was actually Kyrie's first game back in Cleveland since he left there. Did you know that?
Oh no, I did not know that.
In the pregame, he had like a tribute video and all of this stuff. Like it was his first game since he got traded.
Question. If you're a long-term Cleveland fan, do you like Kyrie because of everything he did winning us a championship, or do you like Sexton because he is the future and he's doing everything he can for the team right now? Who do you prefer?
Like, who do you like better, or who do you appreciate more?
Who do you appreciate more right now?
I think Kyrie, because he brought you the championship. As weird as he is,
that one shining moment.
It's that people will never forget that shot. Was it game 6? Oh no, it was game 7. Sorry, what am I talking about? Game 7. That shot in Golden State.
One of the biggest shots in NBA history.
But even that whole series, him and LeBron had to drop like 40 a night each for them to be able to compete. But I definitely think it's just the championship thing will trump all. As cool as it is to have a nice young backcourt and soon to be a pretty good young core with Allen probably jumping into that starting lineup as well. And you can even add a guy like Okoro into that as well. There's actually a lot to like with that Cleveland team in general, but I think the stars aligned perfectly. The fact that so many eyeballs were on that game yesterday all around the world, and Sexton went off, people were like, holy crap, like who's this guy? So some real appreciation now and real love thrown in Sexton's direction that probably has been, let's say, overdue, I think. It's very fair. And I really want Garland to come back as well, because then we can start to see those two mesh a little bit, because the early sample was good. Before Garland got injured, we spoke about it, how Sexton can be that defensive, bull that really locks up the other guy's best perimeter guy. Then he can just focus on being in a scorer position on offense. Let Garland be more of the playmaker, set things up, knock down shots. But early signs was that combination was looking really nice. So want to see it in the fold, and hopefully Garland's back today. I think he practiced the other day. I'd like to see him back ASAP. But that's a really good one. I think we can both agree that Sexton is maybe he's not getting. Oh no, because of his numbers last season, I don't think he'll be in the most improved race. That's probably a stretch. But just let's say his ability to translate those stats to wins. That's most
right now. They're sitting in a playoff spot right now. So interesting.
Maybe coach of the year for that guy for bigger stuff. Yeah. Well, you heard about the locker room bust up that they had with Kevin Porter Jr., who just got traded. I did. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bigger stuff basically took a hard line with some of the words that Porter Jr. was saying to the owner and said, pack up your stuff, clear out your locker, you're gone. And then traded him a couple of days later.
Yeah.
So I guess
that's because someone got his locker room, right? That he was mad about or something.
They gave Taurean Prince his locker.
That's right.
Came in and put him with the rookies down the other end. So and Porter was not happy with that. Shot off his mouth. Apparently threw some cafeteria food at the owner as well. And then the bigger staff told him pack his bags. He's gone. He's going off to Houston.
Yeah, crazy. And he could actually be good for Houston. He could get minutes there and actually do some stuff. So pretty good low risk move there for Houston as well, by the way. I actually quite like that as a pretty savvy pickup for them, because I think it was a fake second rounder in the end. Like it's heavily protected and blah, blah, blah. There's all this stuff for a second rounder anyway. So
they'll take any talent they can get, Houston, at this stage. Rebuilding.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, Das, but locks of the day. It's this time. So since our last pod,
someone's printed the key. Someone's printed the key, and they're giving out keys to everyone. The locks have been unlocked right now.
Yeah. So for you in particular, your locks of the day have been anything but locks. So that's we don't need to go over it too much, but your stretch run hasn't been great over the past 6 or 7 days. So I know you're probably keen to get out of that rut. Do you want to start us off with your lock of the day? This is for Saturday's game. Sorry. So the pod will be it'll be out today. The pod will be out Saturday, but the games have already started. So after we finish recording this, I think Das will go ahead and put his on the Instagram page if you're not following already. But Das will still give his out, but just note that you will be able to see it before the games kick off today anyway. So sorry, Das, over to you.
Okay, for Saturday, 23rd of Jan, I've got Zach Levine to go over 22.5 points at Charlotte, $1.86. So, yeah, I'm liking his chances of going over against Charlotte. We know he had at Charlotte last season. I don't know if anyone remembers. He had one of the most wild games of the season. I think he hit 8 out of 10 3-pointers, including a game-winning 3 after a steal on a spin-around fadeaway. He cooked them last time they played them, so I don't think there's anyone necessarily Charlotte who can guard Levine. And God knows when they're on the road, Chicago need 23 plus from him. They need that desperately to get the win. So I'm thinking that's a lock for Levine and $1.86.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's been cooking recently as well. He dominated on that LA road trip, be it at the Lakers or at the Clippers. He dropped 30 plus in both those games, went off against OKC the other day, even though they lost. But yeah, no, that's definitely a good shout. Mine is Kyrie. I reckon today he's just going to be nothing but a pure scorer. Obviously no KD. So I've got him over 26.5 points at $1.85. So obviously with no Kevin Durant, defense will be out the window. I think Harden, if he hasn't shown already, as you've mentioned, he's more of the playmaking type guard. And I think Kyrie will just be the bucket getter. So I do expect both Harden and Kyrie to be, in the 30s for scoring today anyway. I don't think Harden's scoring will drop off. I think they'll actually need it a little bit more. And I even think the over is a good shout. Mentioned earlier in the pod, 223.5 is a good shout. But I think
they'll be tired after double overtime. So you're right. There won't be much defense.
No. So, and there may not be much offense after double OT as well. But I think more likely than not, my lock is Kyrie. But we'll leave things there. We'll be back next week to discuss all things NBA as always. Das, speak then.
All right, cheers. See you, Chris. Hey, I'll make one today.
0 of 3, so we'll settle on that. Okay, 0 of 3. All right.